Hey, we're going to make a video of my Sioux valve grinder. I had a couple comments. I've heard it before. Um, these things are junk, absolutely trash. And they've been around for, good Lord, how many years? The internet's so full of experts, and not everybody can afford a top of the line valve grinder, and these things will do a fine job if you know what you're doing with them. If you sense a little negativity in my voice, you're probably right. So, this valve is used. It's very lightly used, but all in all, it's used. My gauge is jumping around half of a thousand, saying that it's got a little mark on it. Now, I don't know the history of that valve. That's just a old scrap valve that I threw in my valve miscellaneous valve box, and that was the first one that was relatively clean, so I threw it up there. Wiped the stem down, made sure the stem was clean. Now, this is a chuck, and yes, you can buy a collet chuck and it'll make it even more accurate. But most of the standard size valves that I deal with, it's fine. Anything under probably 5/16, you probably would want to run a collet. You can get collets for this machine. You have to do a little bit of work on them, but it's a doable deal. So we're going to grind this valve, and then we're going to see where we are at the end of the day as far as me grinding it. Then I'm going to mark it, and then I'm going to rotate it, and then I'm going to check for run out again. Okay, so now we got the valve just starting to cut, just not even hardly making anything audible, can't even hardly hear it. So I've started the video up. We're going to face this valve off. Now, I might put it in the mill and grab it with a collet and check it for runout. I think that's going to be the most logical way. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind it. Then I'm going to put a dial indicator on the table and I'm going to read the 45. This is 45 on this particular valve. So here we go. Got a cutter, do a few cleans up. Like I said, I don't know the history of this valve. I'm sure it came out of something that bent some valves or blew up. And I've only got this valve here, but I keep them for doing chamber work, and so we're just about cleaned up. Some marks still on the 45. I didn't dress the wheel. I didn't do anything special. I just, theoretically I should have probably well, I should have dressed the wheel, but I didn't. Got it marked on the chuck where it is right now. I'll move it and I'll check it again. Be careful, the wheel is still running, don't want to get caught into that. Might change that tip out on the dial indicator, but let's see what we got. We'll set her at 0. Less than 1,000, so run out. Um, that's pretty good for this old machine. But we're going to change the tip on this because we're picking up some indifference. So I'm not going to fire it up, but I'll just hand turn it and then I'll fire it up. But yeah, this thing's a piece of garbage. I mean, we're at 0. Yeah, the gauge moves a little bit, not by much. We've gone around it, all the way around it. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate the valve in this chuck, which wasn't going to matter much because it's running out 0, pretty close to 0. Well, for the sake of argument, you want to argue, let's say it's a half a thousandths, which is your valve guides are going to have that on them, and then you're going to have thermo cycling on the head, and where's that going to end up when it's all warmed up? You don't even know. You just hope that it's close, So making all this stuff exact is great, but in the long run, really, when the heat cycles and the head gets hot and it cycles, you don't know where it's at. So we'll set this at 0, especially on aluminum heads, especially if they've been heavily ported. Okay, looks like thousandths. So with the Sioux machines, this part here, the machine is adjustable. It's your backstop for your different length valves. So if you had a big chief valve, a long stem, you're going to adjust it. You always want to grab as close to the end of the valve as you can. So you also can turn this to get the run out of the machine if you want. You would want. It'll help sometimes if you just turn it in increments and then just keep on facing it until you tune it in. So I decided to grab the valve with collet. Now, this is a Chinese collet. It's not a high-grade collet. Didn't clean it or nothing. I just grabbed it, put it up into the mill, and tightened it up. Now, I can't get down to where I grabbed it originally with the Sioux. I can only grab it here because the drawbar is hitting the back of the valve. So we're just going to spin it to get an idea. And I turned the valve in the machine and I picked up a full thousandths runout. So I'm going to turn the machine by hand. And I'm turning the valve right now. And I'm picking up looks like about a half a thousandths runout. Right there, it's starting to almost a thousandths. It's a full thousandths right there. Okay, that's the highest part of the valve. Now, if I just take my finger and I do that, I just made it 2, 3, 4, 5. So, how close is it going to have to be to make it acceptable? Well, I would say if it's within a half a thousandths to a thousandths on a grind, that's close enough. Just forcing the valve into the machine and not dressing the stone properly, you'll get more run out than that. I've never had a problem with a valve job, period. There's a lot of things that go on in an engine when it's hot, and there's a lot of things that go on when the head is buttoned up tight to the engine. And depending on what kind of material it is, the head's made out of, how thick it is, is how it heats up, is how it's going to change. So that's my little video. You can take it for what it's worth. If you can afford to go out and buy a, high dollar valve grinder that's going to grind everything absolutely at zero, that's great. But after a while, it's probably not going to run zero every time. And in the end of the day, how close have to be. You got to put a price tag on it.